Hello, and welcome to Wake Up to Your Life Magic, a podcast dedicated to elevating our leadership through conversations. And today I am so excited because I'm going to have, as you see, Jim Kerr join us today, an executive coach. And we're going to be talking about a little bit about his story, a little bit about his inspiration, what he's chasing in the world, a little bit about challenges he sees and advice he has to give. So I hope you are looking forward to that. You can follow us at Wake Up to Your Life Magic on most social media platforms. Also find us on YouTube. And you can also check out the book at wakeuptoyourlifemagic.com. So welcome, Jim. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Helmut. Great to be here with you. Looking forward to our
Awesome.
conversation today.
Me too. Me too. Tell the audience a little bit about what you do so they can, what do you do and who do you help?
Sure, yeah. I'm a leadership coach and management consultant. I help larger organizations, usually the upper end of the middle market, all the way through the Fortune 500. I do consulting work mostly in the strategy and culture change space, and my leadership coaching is focused on helping leaders become all they can be. So that's kind of who I help and what I do. I've been doing it for decades now, so uh, it never gets tired. I'm really excited with the work that's been going on lately.
Yeah, well, it's been an evolution. I can tell you, having worked in those environments and now being on this end, it's a changing world. It never gets boring. And in fact, right now it's getting intense and new in different ways. So I'm excited about some of that conversation.
Yeah.
Jim, for those who are listening, give us an idea about you. Tell us a little bit about your story, something about you that you felt was a life-changing moment or something that you feel like our audience would benefit from learning about who Jim Kerr is.
Sure. One of the early turning points in my career was the fact that I had an opportunity to work with a consultant. I was a junior person on the team. My boss at the time just plugged me into this project because there was a spot there to fill. And I started to hear what this guy was, selling in essence. And I recognized that some of what his messaging was, you know, not quite right. I had freshly graduated from college and had learned new ideas and was trying to introduce those to the team. And this guy, had his own sort of old fashioned way of doing things and was trying to kind of cut me off. And through the support of my boss, who became a great mentor, I was, continuing to be supported by him and encouraged to, push the envelope. And I did. And that sort of inspired me to consider becoming a consultant. And that's how I got started.
Really? So it was just that was sort of the moment for you. Was it something that you feel like, was it just seeing someone's encouragement, or what was it then that really made it clear?
Well, I just felt like, boy, if this person can do it, so can I. So it was
Yeah.
that kind of a realization, and the fact that I had a guy, and his name is Doc Schilke. He's long retired now, but he, you know, could have easily shut me down too. Uh, Again, being sort of this kid out of college, right? But he didn't. Instead, he encouraged me, and he said, "Yeah, you've got some great ideas. Keep pushing it." And much to the chagrin of the consultant, I did. And a lot of the stuff that I had learned and was starting to apply in the corporate setting worked, thank goodness. And that again sort of emboldened me. I was able to gain that confidence to say, okay, I've got something here, and then I built it, built on that.
Gotcha. Well, as you have built on that, and now that you have had the experience that you have had, what is it that you would tell our audience members that what's the vision you're chasing? What's the next thing for you, the kind of world you're creating or pursuing in the work that you do?
Sure. Great question, Holman. The thing was, and again, I can date it all the way back to sort of that turning point that we talked about earlier. One of the things that my mentor sort of suggested was, why don't you write an article about this? Because it is leading edge. And I did. And it got published in a major magazine at the time. and it sort of launched my career. People started calling and, in essence, asking for free advice and
Yeah.
so on. And yeah, and I um, recognized the importance of contributing to the betterment of leadership thinking. And I saw this first article as being an example of what that could be. And then, I started to write more of those, and eventually had enough ideas in my head that I wanted to write a book. And I wrote a book, and here I am talking with you now, and I've written 7 books. So it's just that, I guess, thought of let's continue to try to contribute to the betterment of leadership thinking. And that's been a driver for, I hate to admit it, but for over 30 years now.
Yeah. So first of all, we do not hate to admit that. That's amazing. Okay. 30 years. I mean, it's important because leadership is something, if you think about, right, over time, over history, we've been developing leadership as humans since the inception, right? Like at first we're just like, can we just organize our tribe not to kill each other? How about
Right,
that? Let's
right,
just some
right.
basics, right? So I think 30 years is tremendous. I feel like a new kid on the block, right? I just did my first book, contributing to the pile, so to speak, of the work that's out there, and
Excellent.
yeah, and definitely, the process of thinking through how to look at things, differently, how to bring our unique expertise, right, and our backgrounds is so important, and so I love that you're still contributing. In fact, you still continue to write for several different outlets, right?
Yeah, I've got a column in Psychology Today, which I'm actually pretty proud of. And the reason that I am is I'm one of the only non-psychologists that write for them. Uh, the angle that I take, of course, is leadership coaching, and I'm providing sort of perspectives from my experience in doing this. I've got hundreds of coaching clients now from over the years, and I've learned quite a bit helping these folks drive forward in their careers. And now I'm writing about that in Psychology Today. So that's one of the outlets. And I also write quite a bit for Inc. magazine. So yeah, kind of both sides of the coin, I guess.
Absolutely. So the inception of AI, as AI kind of steps onto the stage of human experience, right? As something I think we fear and will love, right? All the things. Um, it's been interesting to me because it has really pushed the envelope of people versus profit, right? And how now that we have this amazing tool, right? How will we use it? And what I realized in some of my work in corporate, and in the model I teach is the 9-figure leadership model, but I realized that a lot of my decisions and a lot of my success was driven out of my sense of morality, my sense of
Mm.
spirituality, my sense of connection to my brothers and sisters in work, in as clients or as the shareholders. And so one of the questions I wanted to ask about, as someone who's in the LGBT community, we talk about coming out in those areas, but one of the areas we kind of keep undercover in work often is spirituality, is
Mm.
things about the most human of things, right? The most human of things is my questions about where I'm going and why am I here and my purpose, right? We thrive and thirst for that our whole lives. Or we're sedated by, media and stuff to just sort of peddle. But I'm curious about your thoughts as to how does spirituality play out in your work? Your work, Jim, as a consultant, and also how do you see it playing out in the corporate world, and what do you see about that sort of element of humanity and work?
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring this question up. I just last year, with the publication of my last book, started an online leadership community that's focused on bringing decency back to leadership. So I guess I'd point to that as an example of something that I'm working on right now, and continue to sort of um, bring content forward about that. And I think when you think of all of this in regard to decency, that's going to be an undercurrent that applies regardless of your belief system, regardless of your other elements in your life. Just, are you a decent person? Are you able to bring that forward in the work that you do and the interactions that you have in your life, whether they're private, or in a work setting? So that's kind of where I'm at in that regard. I feel like we've kind of lost our way a little bit, I believe, and I think that it's time for thought leaders, and I guess I consider myself a thought leader, I think it's time for us to step up and promote decency again, because we've kind of lost it a little bit. It's too much about me. It's too much about going viral, and how many followers do I have, and all that sort of social media stuff. And I kind of feel like, yeah, that's not really what life's about. It's about actually treating each other decently.
Yeah, I think so many of those indicators, the followers, the visibility, we've seen the transition from, I would say, traditional selling to, influencer, right, selling, right? And so that shift happened. And I think the reason we're peddling so much to those numbers is really greed, right? It's the numbers, it's the money I get, right, from that. And I look at the question we're asking ourselves, I feel like in our society is, what's the value of a human, right? And am I going to pursue myself and my greed, or my vanity, or my pride, or my whatever the thing is I'm worshiping, over love for one another, which gets into that decency. And I call it morality, right? I call it a sense of the reality that we're all in this together, right?
Yeah.
And that business was really initially incepted to love one another, right? You went and caught some fish. I grew some tomatoes. We do a trade, right? And we both were loving ourselves and loving one another. And it feels like we've stepped away from that.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
so too. And we are all in it together.
mhm.
And regardless of creed, color, etc., you've got to recognize that we're all here right now, and we can make a difference not only for ourselves but for one another, if we just recognize that one point, that we're all here together.
We are, and I think I've heard a lot of people talk about, like, just going to, like, disrupt the systems. You're going to destroy. It's not working. Capitalism isn't good,
Mm.
and you're like, wait, hold on. Capitalism literally lifted up, right, so many countries out of sheer horrible poverty. So we know that competitiveness is important, but it feels like there's like a shift to, like, maybe some loving kindness, right? Some care for one another that AI could enable, right?
I suppose. I mean, I'm not one of these alarmists that you know, oh my God, there's Chat GPT, and all you have to do is give it a prompt and it can produce stuff, and ultimately it's going to replace people, and et cetera, et cetera. And all, we're all familiar with what's being talked about out there. The thing is, it's just another technology. It's just another tool. If you use it right, it can make your life better. Um, but at the end of the day, we're still all here, sort of living, breathing uh,
Yeah,
participants here on the earth,
yeah,
and it's
it's
another
it's
it's another tool we can leverage.
yeah. I mean, it's interesting, right? Because I would say, as someone who's, I've been in many different spaces. IBM Watson with AI was one of them, right? And I think the concern, I guess, I have, it's not unovercomable, right? But I know that AI is able to remove so many jobs that are kind of mindless, could repeat task and do them better than a newbie that you have to train. And I think job predictions are fairly large as to how big the impact will be in the next 4 years. So it kind of just begs it's like almost like it's going to ask us, right, to say, okay, what do we do with that? Do we sort of implode and go like, oh no, or do we innovate, right? So a lot of people may be released into the workforce who now need to learn how to, I'm going to start an AI company to go solve this problem, right? and we're going to have to like basically shift our creative energy into more entrepreneurial spirit as we maybe be released right from a large company.
Yeah.
um,
I mean, I just think that um, story can date back to the introduction of any new innovation. You know, oh my gosh, we're not going to have farms because we introduced this to steam engine or whatever, and we just applied the technology in a way that it leveraged the way we did farming. And uh, I would say that we're in the same sort of space, and yeah, the key is innovation, and it's the reapplication of existing technologies. So when we combine things, when I was coming out of college, there was no iPhone, right? There was no mobile phone. So, the thought of being able to have a phone, in your back pocket at all times and can, enable you to be accessible 24/7 if you like, um, wasn't something that we really thought was possible. Then we combine that with music, and we combine it with scheduling software and, online stores. And all of a sudden, this thing that we're carrying around with us enables us to do all kinds of stuff. Did people lose jobs? Certainly, but new ones emerged that needed to be filled. And I kind of feel the same way about AI.
yeah, I think it's the possibility is there, right? And I think we're going to go through a transition.
Yes.
Because ultimately we're going to need everyone employed. You need someone to buy your products, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So we will have to find our way there, and I think we're going to wind up being tested as humans to kind of figure out how do we get there in a way that we still keep our principles of teaching a man to fish, right, or a human to fish, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big difference, and I think this is why there's this alarmist thing going on, recently, is this is the first time an innovation can think, possibly, you know. So, oh wow, what happens? Will we ever get to a day? I just read a really interesting book. It's actually a couple of years old now. I read it probably about 2 years ago. Quality Land. I don't know if you've read it, but the book basically describes a world where political figures are AI robots, and people are voting on who they want to be their leader. And
Oh,
it's an
okay.
AI robot. And if you close your eyes and you think about the progression of what's going on at the moment, you could imagine a world where that happens, right? You could create an empathetic thinking machine, and one that is able to generate original ideas that are better than anything a human can come up with, and so on. That's a possibility, but do I think it's ever going to happen? Absolutely not, but, but,
Yeah.
but might our thinking be augmented by these thinking machines? Absolutely. Aren't they already? Yes. Hasn't this been going
Oh,
on
yeah.
for
Yeah.
decades? For
Yeah.
sure.
I
So
mean,
this
I'm
is
looking
just
at,
an evolution of what we've already started many, many, many years ago.
yeah, I guess I look at it as there's two parts, right? Again, it's like the negative moves fast, right? Fear moves fast, love moves slow. Um, and I definitely see the fear of like, hey, common tasks that we might have employed people get replaced. And so you got to ask yourself the moral question: what do we do with all these humans that can just do these simple tasks, right? As a society. And then the other side of it is, even you can already see in ChatGPT today, I can start to converse with it. ChatGPT could become a replacement to cognitive behavioral therapy. It could help people that have mental illnesses, right, actually work through their challenges. So there's so many possibilities. Literacy, financial literacy, right? The whole way we educate. All of these areas can be completely rethought of. So it is exciting. You're right. It's got both elements. So thank you for that. I appreciate that little.
Sure. Yeah.
That's a important piece as I think about our consciousness waking up to what we're creating really will matter. I think in these next years. So tell me, one of the things, Jim, I want to do in this podcast is also give people and audience members an option to see vulnerability, right? Now we're always so Teflon in corporate, right? We want to look together. We've got it all great, which I get, right? When you're leading hundreds of people, I've always like, you got to look right. But we also get to be vulnerable. Share with the audience an area that you feel challenged in, or an area that you look at from a business perspective that you want to improve.
Well, I think for me, the biggest challenge that my practice is facing um, has to do with people selling sizzle, not steak. Somewhere in the last, I don't know, let's say 10 years, it's become
Did
really
you say
exciting.
sizzle nut steak?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I've
I
never heard
mean,
that.
well, I mean, think about it. It's sort of like folks selling their marketing stuff, and they've got flashy, ads running 24/7 every place you
Mhm.
look. And I'm looking at these leadership coaches that, I'm certified as a junior coach, and I went through the training, and I've never spent a day in corporate America, and I don't really know much about business or anything, but I have this certification. My marketing content is incredible. Um, but what are they really bringing to their clients?
Mhm.
It's a lot of sizzle. It looks really cool. They're certified. That doesn't mean they're good. That doesn't mean they have the chops to make somebody better. And for me, that's sort of a recent challenge that I'm recognizing, that there are players in the marketplace now that have really zero content, but their stuff all looks really good.
Yeah, it's
They
like
haven't
it's
written
a
haven't written a book. They're not a thought leader. They don't have any real life experience, but they got really cool marketing stuff.
yeah, it's shiny, it's pretty. And I relate to that. I mean, having 10 years at GE and IBM and McKesson and other companies, right? Having led nine-figure businesses, you're kind of like, I've got the chops, right? And you kind of step out onto that stage, and you are like, hey, I actually have done these things, and these models work, right? That I've innovated, and I get that 100%. And so it makes it more of a challenge for us in our marketing, right? And how we connect.
Well,
But you know what? You
Helmet,
can do flashy marketing too, Jim.
well, let me share a recent story. So I'm on LinkedIn, and I have a modest following, and it's a very strong audience. I mean, I haven't lost people. The people that follow me on LinkedIn also follow my YouTube channel. They're also subscribers to my newsletters. They're also clients. They're a very committed group. um, so I started looking around LinkedIn, and I realized, like, there's like millions of views for these little stupid, I call them stupid, not that the
Now that the
pictures,
human is,
yeah,
yeah,
they're cute little dogs, and we're watching dogs flip over, the Erie Canal, and doing silly tricks, and everybody loves them. So I said, okay, let me do an experiment. I'm going to post a new post every day this week that features a dog, and let's see
yeah.
how it performs. And through the roof, through the roof, cute little dogs sell. Now, meanwhile, the messaging in these posts are be nice to each other.
Hmm.
Simple stuff that, a 4-year-old that's starting kindergarten could recite. But again, the same sort of drivel that I'm seeing these flashy marketing guys using. It's really simple, not very deep, not really important. Sort of, I don't know, table stakes. Be nice to each other. I had another one that said something like, "Be careful what you say." You know, Eh, Thousands of reactions to this post because the Saint Bernard was cute. You know what I mean? I'm not contributing to the betterment of leadership thinking, coming out with be nice to each other,
But you know what?
careful
It's
what you
speaking,
say. Come on.
but it's speaking. I think it's speaking to something that we as humans are struggling with, right? We work in these corporate environments that have increasingly lost humanity. many people are looking at, will my job be replaced, right? I know, CFOs in, the tech corridor in California, right, that are telling me, hey, we keep upping the amount of cost reduction we're going to get because of AI, right? We've got the political world that's like storming and raging. We're seeing things that feel violent on our screens, right, at levels we haven't seen. So there are a lot of things I think have people where they're like, I just want to see a puppy. Can I just see a puppy and like a happy I love you message, right? I think it speaks to a,
Yeah,
you're tapping an unmet need, right?
I think you're right. But that said, then let's work on those problems that you just described. Let's figure
Yeah,
out how the CFO is not going to lose their job. Let's try to figure out how we can right the political environment that we find ourselves in. Let's do something. Let's
yeah.
not
We
hide
need,
behind a post that says "be nice to each other." I mean,
yeah,
okay, I feel good too for about a second, but now let's
yeah.
fix the problem instead of trying to ignore it.
I agree. And I won't go at length on this point, Jim. I think you know that I'm running for mayor of Atlanta.
Oh yeah,
But I really truly feel like there are so many corporate leaders. This is actually my prayer. My prayer is that there is an opportunity for leaders in corporate who may be impacted, right, or feel like, hey, I'm not really happy here, to go into politics and start doing solution based leadership. What I'm finding as I step onto the stage is I'm like the business logic, right, in my brain. I'm like, oh my gosh, we could do AI, like we could do this with this homeless group. We could do this with the mentally ill, right? Like there are things that we can do. I truly believe that with AI, we're opening up a possibility of solving every ill. We just have to actually want it. We have to desire that outcome. And that's going to take a leadership that is business savvy, right? That has, I call it spiritual focus, right? Like has a calling, right? And then steps into the political fray and drives with solutions. I don't care what color you are, right? Be more committed to the lack of corruption, which is the white of our flag, than any color, right? And just help us steer the nation through what's going to be an amazing time when we get through it. You know,
sounds
um,
good. I
yeah,
don't live
right.
in
Sign me up. Sign me up.
I don't live in Atlanta, but if I did, I'd vote for you.
Yeah. Well,
Just
thank you. But I guess I'm making though a comment right about the way that, and even the listeners in this podcast, it's just a question of, what can you do in the world you have, or what can you do to expand to maybe think of yourself? A lot of corporate leaders, what I'm finding is they don't realize how incredible they are. Like, oh, I went over here and I did this in Israel and I did over this in Africa and then I traveled over here and I love this. And I'm like, that's an incredible thing. That's an incredible skill set to transfer over to politics, right? And help America push forward. So I have a really fun end question, Jim, which is really our advice, right? So you have globs of great experience and so many books worth of fantastic advice. But what's one kernel that you would say, man, if I had known this earlier, this would help so many people? What gift would you like to give the audience?
boy, that's a tough one for me. I probably answer it, seven different ways depending on the day of the week. But I do think that the biggest thing that we can do is try to be decent to each other. It's really critical that we pursue at least our professional ambitions with some empathy, willingness to listen and understand, uh, a willingness to share the spotlight and not make it about how many likes did I get and did my latest post go viral, and like knock down the sizzle and make a difference by just being decent with each other.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's important. It's super important, and we all know it. We know it's important. We just need to feel empowered to do it and realize that every one of us matter in that. It's like a ripple, right? Which is really I think one of the things that we're struggling to believe is that like, hey, like it matters what you do and what
Mm,
you do and what you do. Because if we don't start manifesting a positive outcome, it won't happen,
right.
right? And it just feels like a lot to get over. And I'll just say I did my best in the book to encourage us to wake up to the fact we are creating the reality of what's in front of us, and we can create a great outcome over these next years, or we can create a challenging one, right? And we get to decide, right? Just like always, like every generation.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jim. I really appreciate you joining me. And I thank you all for listening. If you want to learn more, Jim, where can they go to learn more about you?
Well, check out the leadership community that I mentioned. It's based on decency. It's called indispensable-coaching.com. And there you'll find some really good content and some opportunities to develop your leadership chops.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And if you want to check out any of my 9-figure leadership programs, you can check me out at drhelmutlove.com. Thanks so much, everyone.
So long.